Can you think of a better way to open the 2015 high school football season than a matchup of 1 versus 2? Maybe a dramatic ending? Ask and you shall receive. It's Varsity 360's Gridiron Report, and it starts right now. Hi there, everyone. Mark Coleman here from the Virginia Varsity Sports Network, and this is the award-winning Varsity 360's Gridiron Report, our weekly look at the top stories in Fredericksburg area high school football. Very happy to be able to talk week 1 in our 3rd season, and happy to be joined by some of my good friends from the Freelance Star and the FLS Varsity team. We have the assistant sports editor, Mr. Justin Rice. Justin,
award-winning, I like that. Throw that in there. Award-winning.
It's accurate.
Truth.
We'll talk about the award, but it was a big one actually.
True.
But yeah, good stuff. And we also have one of my very favorite sports reporters, also from the Freelance Star. It is Nathan Warters. Nathan, good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
It's good to be back talking football, huh? We got all of the previews out of the way, and week 1 is under our belts. Hard to believe.
Yeah, 10 more weeks and we're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy to think about.
And it'll be here before we know it, so let's enjoy the football. We got it.
That's right, that's right. Let's jump right in. Number 1, Massaponax visited number 2, Courtland, in a matchup of the top 2 teams from around the area, at least for preseason, and it did not disappoint. This game was a barn burner, maybe not by score, but it was a back-and-forth contest, very exciting.
And you were there, Mark, so what are your impressions of Massaponax? You know, obviously we picked them number 1. Courtland, we picked number 2. These are 2 good teams playing a close game, yeah?
Clearly 2 very strong teams. Ponax did not start out very well, quite honestly. I mean, the offense looked to be out of sorts. Courtland's defense looked really sharp. Their offense looked really sharp. They jumped out to a quick 14-0 lead. A couple of touchdown passes from Chet Wilborn from Courtland. 2 touchdown passes in the first quarter. 1 13 yards to Jabari Allen, a 31-yarder to Nick Grant. 2 big wideouts. I mean, he's got some impressive targets. Ponax was able to hold on, though, and a couple of field goals, getting it close, and then it came down to that last-second, somewhat controversial field goal attempt by Joey Hildebrand, his 3rd of the night. It's good. Massaponax comes away with a 15-14.
Yeah, we've got videos of that ending here, and you know, the key plays, of course, Trey Watkins goes out of bounds, or excuse me, is tackled inbounds, and may or may not have had his helmet knocked off. The officials blow it dead. Massaponax has time to run their field goal team out on the field. That happened on 3rd down. You got kind of a different take on that. You know, that happens on 3rd down.
Yeah, you run out there and you can spike the ball, but your kids have to know, okay, run out there, get set, and spike it. I don't know if, I think with the confusion, there might not have been enough time to let them know, okay, go out there and do that. I wasn't there, so I don't know, but it just seems like one of those situations, if you have a down and you have a kicker who made a 40-yarder earlier in the game, you can bring him out and give him time to kick the ball.
The opportunity certainly was there, whether the kids were we're talking about the first game of the season,
yeah.
And honestly, this was on a Thursday night, so they even had 1 fewer day of practice. So I'm not sure what kind of game time situations they were able to go through. A pretty senior team, particularly the snapper, the holder, and the kicker. They were able to pull it off, and Hildebrand is for real.
Yeah, certainly, and just a good win for Ponax. And I know Courtland is not happy how this one came out. They left 14-12 up on the scoreboard until they turned off the lights that night. But you know, I think as JC said, that wasn't the season. That was game 1 of 9 more to come in the regular
Clearly,
season.
Courtland is a strong team. This may be, with all due respect to the rest of their schedule, this may be the toughest opponent that they have, at least during the regular season. So a good test for them. Not a big team, so there were a lot of players on Courtland, the Cougars, that went both ways, and it started to show in the 4th quarter. There was some conditioning, a lot of cramping. Cramping was certainly a factor in the 4th quarter, but I'll also tell you, Blair Lawson is going to be a powerhouse for the Cougars. He made an impact early, 102 yards rushing on only 9 carries. It was awfully impressive performance.
A low-scoring game. I mean, was that the case? Like, was it defenses playing well? Was it a little bit of rustiness because it was the season opener? I was expecting Massaponax and Courtland to put up some points in this game.
I was too. It shows how much we know, I guess,
yeah.
Right? It was a very hard-hitting game. It was a little you could see that there was some rust. It was not well executed in some regards, but a lot of hard hits, and despite the low score, it was an extremely exciting game. As an unbiased, unpartisan observer, I certainly enjoyed it. I'm not sure that the Courtland fans went home happy. I'm pretty sure that the Ponax fans did go home happy. That's what happens in sports, though.
I think one of the bonuses of having a low-scoring game like this is that we got to see Joey Hildebrand. I mean, he kicked a 40-yarder, a 38-yarder, then a game winner from 35. I mean, you don't see that very much from high school kickers. This is a guy who hadn't kicked a lot of field goals because they score so many points. He looks like he's a real legit source of points for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Another interesting point. So Ponax, back-to-back seasons of 10-0. I don't remember the last time that how many regular season victories they've got in a row. You should look into that, Justin. But they did not lead at any point during this game until the final whistle blew. So they were able to pull it off. But Courtland, very strong team, very impressive team. I think that we're going to see a lot from both of these teams over the course of the season. Number 3, North Stafford took a visit to Osborne, and the Wolverines come away with a 53-22 victory. Nathan, you were at this game. Sounds like North Stafford looks pretty strong. Yeah,
obviously they have some offensive firepower they didn't have last year.
Any new guys there?
This kid named Devin Ford, I think he's going to be a really special talent for them, and he showed right off the bat with 237 rushing yards on only 14 carries. He had 4 touchdowns. 14 years old, and he's already getting interest from major colleges. So, they started off a little slow in the first quarter. Second quarter, he takes a 23-yard catch and run to the 1-yard line. He scores a touchdown. The rest of the game, it's just big play after big play after big play.
85-yarder, 60-yarder, 46-yarder, 59-yarder called back. Is there one that stands out to you that you saw that you would?
The 85-yarder was it was just a really special run. He hits the second level like immediately, and there's no one even near him. I mean, he's taking off. Every single one of his runs, he's getting to the second level. He's reading the blocks really well. He's getting to the second level, and all the defensive players are just running after him. I mean, he's making them chase him. So he's got the speed. He's got the vision. There's some huddle footage, of him running, and you can kind of see the holes open up, and he reads it, makes a cut, one cut, and goes. There was a couple runs where he was spinning out of tackles. I mean, he's got all the skill to be a real special player.
And I think one of the best things about this game is not Kim Morton, of course, last year's Freelance Star Athlete of the Year. He catches 3 passes for 67 yards, 3 rushes for 67 yards with a touchdown, runs back 2 kicks, and he's not the person we're talking about. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I kind of felt bad because after the game I was asking him about Devin Ford, and then I'm like, oh, by the way, tell me about those long kickoffs you had. He's a real special talent too, and they have, like I said, they have some playmakers this year. Last year they had so many injuries that kind of hamstrung them, and this year it just seems like they have the depth and they have the playmakers to be a special offense. And defensively, they always seem to have the dogs in that fight. So I think they're going to be, a force to be reckoned with this year.
Devin Ford, as was mentioned, 14 carries, 237 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, 2 other receptions for 37 yards. And by way of that, Devin Ford from North Stafford High School is our Varsity 360 Player of the Week. Congratulations to Devin. Congratulations to North Stafford. They get out of the gate with a bullet. Yeah. Number 4, Riverbend took a trip across Route 3 and visited the Chancellor Chargers. The Chargers coming away with a surprising 27-24 victory. This game also came down to not quite the final play, a punt that ended up having a roughing the punter call against Riverbend, so Chancellor was able to run out the clock. Jason Brown with a very impressive performance for the Chargers, 16 of 26 passing, 296 yards. Also 9 carries for 67 yards and 2 touchdowns, rushing the ball, completing passes to 8 different receivers. Pretty impressive feat there. Emmanuel Jenkins from Chancellor with 3 receptions, 134 yards, and a touchdown for Chancellor.
You called this surprising. It's not surprising. I don't think this is surprising. Chancellor, we knew, had a lot of talent back, and they're certainly capable of winning this game. The thing with Chancellor has been the schedule is really, really tough. And, they came out, I think they really proved something to come out there and get a big win against the Division 16. That's a big one for them.
It is a big one for them, and I think that I had said that there was going to be, I think that this is still an upset. Chancellor might have some other upsets ahead of them as well.
Maybe.
It's a strong team.
I've got your Varsity 360 obscure stat of the week. Since Riverbend opened in 2005, In no year in which Chancellor beat Riverbend did Chancellor finish worse than 500.
Wow.
Yes, so indicator game maybe. Chancellor's never been sub 500 in a year they've beaten Riverbend.
How about that? Well, Charger fans have something to look forward to.
And I wonder if they've ever beaten a team like this. I mean, this is a really good
Riverbend
Riverbend team. This
yeah.
is a loaded Riverbend team, and I think Riverbend, this is a tough loss for them, but this isn't by no means a signal of what they've got to come. I think they're a really good team, and I think they'll bounce back from this.
Yeah, Orlando Jones, 21 carries for 159 yards. They certainly have the weapons. I think Riverbend and Chancellor sort of mirror each other in that, again, we talk about Riverbend, we're talking about a really tough schedule.
Yep, absolutely. Orlando Jones with a touchdown rushing and a touchdown receiving for the Bears. I'm sure that Riverbend disappointed in this loss, but I think the story here is that Chancellor is a very strong team. I have a feeling we're going to see them. I'm going to say that they're going to crack the FLS top 5 power poll. I'm calling it right now.
Yeah, Massaponax this week, so
doesn't get easy.
It's going to have to come. They have to win a couple more big games in order for that to happen because they got so many good games on their schedule.
Number 5, Eastern View took on Spotsylvania, a rather lopsided game, 42-0. Justin, you were at this game. I think that Josh Stallings is the early leader in blocked punt recovered for touchdowns from the area.
Well, and Josh Stallings is, of course, Eastern View's quarterback and has not been given the opportunity in his career to play defense, to play special teams. And there he is. He's playing an outside linebacker spot. He capitalized on his teammates on special teams getting in there and blocking punts. Stallings is at the the right place at the right time. Eastern View rolls. It was 21-0 in a flash. It looked pretty solid. Justin Pollard, is he Kendrick QB? I don't know. We'll see. He certainly had a nice game. 15 carries for 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. Eastern View's first 9 plays were running plays, all that read option style between Pollard and Stallings. Stallings is an effective runner. Pollard's an effective runner. And Diago Hunter, the little do-everything receiver type they've got out there. He caught one really nice fly route for a touchdown for a 52-yarder, and then he caught one little screen pass that he made some plays, sort of QB-esque. So maybe they're not replacing Kendrick with one player, but they're going to get that out of 2 or 3 guys.
How strange does it feel to be able to say that a kid catches 2 balls, takes them both to the house? All he does is catch touchdowns. Justin Pollard, 15 carries for 127 yards, and we're comparing him to, and 2 touchdowns for Pollard, and we're comparing him to the phenomenal performance of QB from last year. This Eastern View team looks pretty strong, though.
Looks strong.
The competition's going to get stronger, but
certainly
this was a pretty impressive performance.
I think the questions you take away from it are, Spotsy had a little bit of success with their power running game against Eastern View. So how is Eastern View going to stand up to that against a stronger team? I don't think their secondary was very tested by Spotsy. But we'll see. Eastern View certainly has the weapons offensively, certainly about to put up a good record again this year. How they're going to be at against that next level of competition. That's the question.
Cyclones with a 42-0 game. Matchup of Stafford schools, Colonial Forge taking on Brooke Point. This game may be a little bit closer than some expected. Certainly was much closer than last year's results here, Nathan.
I think we had an idea that Brooke Point had some really good playmakers and that they were kind of heading in the right direction after last year. And this is a really good indication of where they are as a team to play as tough as they did against a really good Colonial Forge team. At the end, it came down to a couple big defensive plays by the Eagles and a blocked field goal and a 3-point game. So obviously a disappointing loss for Brooke Point, but a good sign, especially after losing to these guys 44-0 last year. I think we have another new star for Colonial Forge too, Rohan Martin, 2 interceptions. He had a really big game receiving as well. He's a really fast guy. I think he could be on the verge of a breakout as well.
Antonio McCray, we talked about him with Coach Brown and during the preseason, 16 carries for 117 yards and a touchdown. Maybe he's going to be that guy that had so many offensive yards to replace from last year between the graduated quarterbacks and running backs and receivers. There you go, McCray and Martin looking like 2 guys who can make up some of that gap.
Let's mention Damone Drew for Brooke Point. He didn't touch the ball in the first half apparently, or he didn't carry the ball, and he had 14 carries for 113 and a touchdown in the second half. Virginia, he's got an offer from Virginia, a really good player, so I think he's going to be one to look out for too this year for Brooke Point.
Maurice Jones, 4 catches for 132 yards. That's a big game.
Some impressive performances on both sides of the field. Brooke Point and Colonial Forge both with some impressive statistical lines at least.
Yeah.
So Forge comes away with the 26-23 victory over Brooke Point. King George took on Washington and Lee in a matchup of Northern Neck rivals. Justin, you were at this game. A little bit different than last year?
Yeah, last year, of course, King George blows a big lead and loses in overtime. I'll tell you what came across to me. King George is really, Tim Coleman, of course, the former FCS coach, former Spotsy coach. He was the wing tee disciple or the missionary this year, and he went around and helped several schools set up this wing tee offense, including King George, and they really embraced it. They really showed what it could be for the Foxes. You know, Rashad Payton is the fullback. He's a big, burly, hard runner. He had 11 carries for 61 yards. Of course, they're spreading it around, though. They're getting on the outside, Jordan Alley, other wingback types to give them speed and power. You know, King George has 249 rushing yards. They had 11 5-yard penalties, false starts, alignment penalties on offense, things like that. They cleaned those up. They look really, really strong.
Defense looked like they played pretty well as well. A smaller school, so not always the easiest way to compare, but this was a team that last year was able to come back from a big deficit, Washington Lee. King George shut them down and got the shutout this year.
Yeah, Washington Lee, and to me the Eagles are interesting to see what they're going to be when they get in the meat of their schedule against 1A and 2A schools. I don't think they're that bad. They're really young. They're really inexperienced. They've got a quarterback that can throw it a little bit, and they've got playmakers that can run the ball hard. You know, W&L, I think, at the end of the season is not going to be a team we look at that lost 43-0.
Okay. Week 1, though, Foxes with a 43-0 shutout. Orange and Culpeper getting together in a Week 1 matchup. The Hornets coming away with a 37-27 victory. Not bad. Some big stat lines here.
Yeah, two completely contrasting styles, of course. Orange with first-year coach Jesse Lohr. They go to the power running game and hand it to D'Angelo Hunt 20 times for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Trevon Smith with 16 carries for 108 yards, 2 touchdowns. Orange almost completely eschews the pass. Culpeper almost completely sets aside the run. You know, the Blue Devils, Hunter Krim, 26 for 48, 326 yards. He's your Week 1 area passing leader, your early season leader, and a decent chance to lead the season in passing because Culpeper throws it so dang much. 10 times to Eli Marks for 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. Offensive game.
Very offensive game, in a good way. But, yeah, I mean, do you think that Orange is going to have 326 yards passing for the season? Krim had that in one game.
Well, that's a good question about the Hornets. It's just what they are with first-year coach Lohr. You know, the Orange program has been dormant, you know, maybe since Quentin Hunter left, Bradley Stark, since those guys were gone. You know, Orange is just waiting to have one of those teams to sort of return them to competitiveness and so on, and to be a team that's 7-3 every single year. Orange, always very competitive against the Jefferson District teams. Great way to start.
Can't do a whole lot better than that. A 37-27 victory over the Blue Devils. Take a quick look at other games around the area. Patriot with a 20-17 victory over Stafford. Stafford, not a bad result here.
It's a close game, and I know Nathan, you think Patriot may be a decent team, and it's a Division 6 team. Gosh, Stafford, if you pile up the last second, last minute, last 2-minute losses over the last 5 years, it's been tough for Stafford. You know, hopefully this, though, is a good sign for the Indians.
James Monroe had to take a trip down 95 to take on Dinwiddie, and they come back on the short side of a 48-34 loss. And
I know the James Monroe coaching staff very impressed by Dinwiddie's offense. You know, they think that's one of the better 4A teams in the state. Still, JM with, you know, Antoine Felton with 14 carries for 142 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Dejan Weldon, formerly DJ Weldon of Washington and Lee, 15 carries, 150 yards. You know, I think the JM offense showed it's got a lot to offer. Got to work on the defense, but maybe Dinwiddie's pretty good.
Yeah, I think Dinwiddie scored. When they won a national or the state championship 2 years ago, they scored like 720 points. So I think they score a lot of points regardless. So I think this is probably what was expected anyway. So
tough matchup for JM. Mountain View with an impressive 42-20 victory over Freedom. Impressive stat line for one of the Mountain View kids.
Yeah, I think there was kind of a question going into this year, you know, how that offense at Mountain View would look without Elijah Burris after, you know, being there for 4 years as a starter. I think they kind of showed right now that they're going to just put it in the hands of Jameel Collison-Coffey, who ran for 228 yards and 5 touchdowns. Really great performance for that kid. And I think, you know, they have the talent in the program, and this kid obviously does a lot of good things. So he could be a name we talk about a lot this year.
I think so. Monacan with a 48-6 victory over Caroline. And then Colonial Beach took on a private school from Maryland, Avalon. Lost this one 35-0. You know anything about these guys?
Yeah, the Drifters are going to take that game, crumble it up, and throw it over their shoulders. Avalon, private school, small private school, 7 Division I recruits, some guy, Diggs for Maryland, his younger brother also on the team. That's a good Avalon team. I know Jeremy Jack not displeased with Colonial Beach's effort and their results this week. Sure, they'd have liked to win.
Confine them to 35 points. Yeah. That's a look at the area games. Previewing week 2 from around the area in high school football. Justin, which of these games on this docket is impressing you here?
I think it's a really, really nice schedule. Some rivalry games, especially in Spotsylvania County. Chancellor, Massaponax. Chancellor coming off the big win, the upset that Mark thinks is an upset against Riverbend. Massaponax, of course, coming off the really close, narrow win against Courtland. I think it's a good game. I think, Chancellor certainly has the weapons to contend. Massaponax got to get that offense moving now.
A strong pass offense from Chancellor might give some fits to a Ponix team that gave up some big plays in the past last week. So it'll be interesting to see what turns out there. Nathan, what piques your interest?
That North Stafford at Colonial Forge game. Colonial Forge has had North Stafford's number the last few years. I know the players at North Stafford, especially the seniors, are kind of chomping at the bit for that one. But Forge, they have a lot of talent. And I think last week's that defensive performance in the first half for Forge, I think they're probably going to be much more prepared for this one. So I can see like a really nice clash between these two teams, a pretty close ball game for that one.
I think definitely degree of difficulty for North Stafford definitely goes up. Let's see, are those weapons going to translate into this week's game?
Likewise, the degree of difficulty for Forge goes up as well. It's two strong teams. It'll be interesting to see who comes out of this one in this sort of round-robin Stafford County tournament that's going on.
Mark, you like football?
I do like football. A matchup of two winless teams at this point, two 0-1 teams, Courtland and Riverbend. I think this will be interesting to see where these two teams are. Courtland looked awfully strong, narrowly missed coming away with that victory at Ponix. I know that they're probably still reeling a little bit over that. Will they be able to rebound and fare well against a strong Riverbend team that struggled a little bit against Chancellor last week? It's been interesting to see how these two teams respond.
Well, and of course, it's week 2, and nothing is actually at stake yet. I think this one, PowerPoints-wise, I love PowerPoints, means probably more for Riverbend than it does for Courtland. I think it's more important for Riverbend to get the win in terms of improving their standing than maybe it is for Courtland. Courtland's going to have a lot of games against 4 and 3A teams coming up where they're going to have a chance to score sufficient points. Riverbend taking the losses to 4A schools, that hurts a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly, they lost up to a 4A school last week, too.
Exactly.
That double whammy.
Tony DeMarco a couple of weeks ago when we were talking to him made the great point, too, about starting slow. You don't want that snowball effect, especially when you're playing all these great teams. So that makes it even more important for both of these teams because you don't want to kind of get on that roll where you're playing good team after good team after good team and you're kind of getting that morale, that hangover from each of these losses. So it's important in that regard as well.
JM with what could be a little bit of a debilitating loss last week. They've got York this week. It's at home. You like this one?
I think JM can certainly take that Dinwiddie game and put it away and move forward and their season is not written in any way. Certainly we've seen 6-4 and 7-3 JM teams go very far in the playoffs because they just played a very, very good 4A team. I think York, this is more conducive to what JM is going to be seeing, especially when it comes to the early rounds of the postseason games. York's a team we've seen in the playoffs. We've seen JM play York and things like that. Interesting game. I think JM's got a good shot to get well at home back at Maury Stadium.
JM's coaching staff is so great. They always make those adjustments from week to week and figure things out as the season goes along. So I think this will be one of those where they take the lessons from last week, apply it to this week, and get moving.
I mean, if they put up the offensive numbers they put up last week, I really like JM this Friday.
Should pose well for them. Justin, I want to ask you, I know you're going to be covering the Thursday game this week. King George will be hosting Essex. What do you think about these Thursday games? There were 2 last week. I know I was at the Ponix-Courtland game. It was extraordinarily well attended. It's a chance to get in some additional rear ends in the seats, I think, on these Thursday games.
Of course, and I'm selfish. Thursday games make it a lot easier for us to get a stray reporter out to cover a game, and that's what I'm after. I think Essex-King George, it's a great rivalry game. It's cool to have it on Thursday night. It's sort of like an old-school Eastern Virginia game. Essex has been very, very good in single A the last couple of years. King George, I think, looked pretty crisp with some clear mistakes to clean up from last Thursday's win against W&L. I think this is a good chance to show that King George has taken a step forward this year.
That's a look at some of the games that will be played this week. I hope you're able to get out and catch a good high school football game around the area. Well, that's going to do it for this week's installment of Varsity 360's Gridiron Report. Always happy to be joined by some of my very good friends from the Freelance Star, Justin Rice, Nathan Warters. Fellas, it's a pleasure. I appreciate the time.
we're getting there. I think we're in like early, like third preseason game form here. We'll get it tuned up for you, Mark.
We'll check the film, make some corrections. Hopefully we don't have to narrow down the roster. Are we good? I think we've made the cuts.
We'll just make those adjustments, the adjustments.
Check back next week when we will be recapping all of the top stories from Week 2. For the good folks from the Virginia Varsity Sports Network, my name is Mark Coleman. Thanks for watching.